What is up, my fabulous friendos? Mr. R is back. Today we're going to be going over some tips and tricks to help you through the reading STAAR. So buckle up. Here we go. All right, friendos, let's get into it. STAAR. Tips and tricks. Really, it's just a bunch of advice that's really going to come in handy, and I wish that I had heard when I was doing standardized testing. All right, so first one. Tip numero uno. Have you ever seen where someone gets super duper nervous and they get like frozen, or they have an accident in their pants, or maybe they start to stammer?
Now? Now? Happy birthday. But now?
Or maybe it's happened to you where you're taking a test, maybe you're going to a new school, and lots of times your brain will freeze. Well, there's a reason for that freezing. Yeah, it's called fight, flight, or freeze. It's something that your brain does to help you stay alive.
Sometimes our minds go blank and we feel like we can't move or talk. That would be great if we needed to hide. Instead, we just feel stuck. When your brain does this, it's called fight, flight, or freeze. The problem is, sometimes your brain gets confused and it can't tell the difference between a charging moose and, say, going to a new school. Both things can be scary and cause anxiety. But there aren't any dangerous wild animals at a new school. Hopefully.
You're not going to be in danger of dying, okay? When you take the STAAR, the first thing you need to do is recognize how your brain works, okay? So we're going to look into that just a little bit, all right? When you get scared, remember that your brain doesn't know the difference between a tiger and a test. Yes? So what it's going to do is it's going to turn this off and turn your muscles on. Because it thinks you either need to freeze and hide, it thinks you need to run away, or it thinks you need to fight. None of those things involve in critical thinking. Yeah? So tip number one. Stay calm. Okay? I'm not going to tell you that this doesn't matter, because it does. But you thinking critically, being calm, is going to matter the most to your success. So, tip number one is stay calm and carry on. Legit, take breaks, but don't waste time. Understand that your skills are valuable and you just have to use them. This is your opportunity to show everyone the skills that you've learned. It is not a permanent scar. It should be a medal that you carry around forever. Yes? All right, so tip number one, stay calm. Don't turn your brain off. You're not fighting a tiger, you're not freezing and hiding, and you're not trying to run away. Okay? So when you find yourself in that situation, breathe, stay calm, go back, reread. All right, friendos, tip number two. Write as you read. Now, I know a lot of your teachers have told you, I'm not going to accept your test unless I see all your strategies. Well, there's something you need to know, okay?
Ay, perdón, I do not sound that way. And if they don't turn in their strategies, vale más, I will not let them turn in their test.
They're not trying to be mean to you or anything like that. They just understand how your brain works. Your brain has two kinds of memory. Long-term and short-term. Yeah? So let's talk about that. Tip number two. And yes, I'm writing as I record this. So, tip number two. Yes? Write as you read. Okay? What does that mean? As soon as you read, you need to take your notes, okay? Whether they're track marks, whether it's a little summarization, and there's a reason why, okay? Your brain has long-term and short-term memory. right? Your short-term memory is all the stuff that it absorbs constantly. Yeah, but your brain only has so much space. It's a super dope supercomputer, but it only has so much space. So if your brain figures that you're not going to use that info, it'll just delete it. Yeet! It'll just get rid of it. Okay? So if you're going through and you're reading and reading and reading and reading and reading and you're not taking any notes, you're not stopping and thinking, you're not leaving any track marks, your brain is just going to dump all that info to make room for new info. So if you don't use any of the information that you just read, you're going to lose it.
Bruh, Mr. Rodriguez is funny. Oh, wait, I do that stuff. Bruh, I'm taking a pass.
Right? So you need to move it to the long term. Well, how do you do that? Well, let's take a little looky-loo, right? It's not that hard. So, this is what I would do. I'm just going to show you what I would do, but you stick to the tool that's best for you. Just know how your brain works physically. You have to move it from short term to long term. And I'll just show you something real quick that I would do. I'm going to read this and I would show you the notes I would take. Easy peasy. Father Crow decided to ask a wise old fox for help. The fox listened to the crow's tale of woe and then came up with a brilliant plan. He told two crows to go to the river the next morning. The ladies of the royal household would be swimming there. Their jewels would be lying on the riverbank, watched over by the servants. Now, I just read that, but I don't want it just to go into short-term memory and get deleted as I read. So let's just take a few notes. Now, my first little trick for you is always try to read the first and last sentences again after you read. Usually the first and last sentences kind of give you a lot of important info. So I'm just going to read the first and last sentences again. Father Crow decided to ask a wise old fox for help. Okay. Now their jewels would be lying on the riverbank. Well, whose jewels? Well, they're talking about the ladies of the royal household. So I'm just going to take some real quick notes. Remember, you're not trying to rewrite this thing. I ain't pay you to do that, all right? All you're trying to do is take what you read and turn it into a memory. It's not rewriting that entire paragraph. You're trying to take good notes that just make sure you have good memories. So my notes are going to be really simple, but still to the point. Yeah? So my first note. Yeah, well, first get a pen. Father Crow asks Fox for help. Easy peasy. That's right there. Now, I left out the wise, I left out the word decided, because I'm really just trying to cement what I read into a memory. And that's that he asked the old fox for help. Easy peasy. Well, what did he get out of that? He got a brilliant plan. What was that plan? To go to the river. So that's what I'm going to put. I'm going to put the things that really stood out to me to make this event into something I remember. So Father Crow asked the fox for help. Fox has a plan. Right? For crows to go to river. Now, I'm writing really big because I'm on my iPad, okay, and I want you to see. You're going to have a lot more room, and you're also going to have extra paper, so don't you worry about that. Already, I have the beginning, and I have the middle. Well, what's the last thing that's really important about making this a memory? Well, it's that the ladies of the household would be there with the jewels. Okay? So that's going to be the last thing I write. I'm just going to change colors so I can tell the difference. This is my beginning. This is my middle. And here's my end. And you're like, I thought you said you didn't have to summarize the whole thing and rewrite it. Well, no. But for me as a reader, the way Mr. R read it, this is what he's going to write so he has a good memory. If yours is different, that's okay. Just make sure it's a good memory and not a fast one. Yeah? So, crows go to riverbank. Okay, and what's at the riverbank? Where the jewels are. Now, hopefully you're a lot more organized than Mr. R. He's just running out of space. But always remember that a messy tool, a sloppy tool, is not a good one. So, I'm going to read this, and I'm going to read my notes, and you see if you can make a good memory out of what I wrote. Here we go. Father Crow decided to ask a wise old fox for help. The fox listened to the crow's tale of woe and then came up with a brilliant plan. He told the two crows to go to the river the next morning. The ladies of the royal household would be swimming there. Their jewels would be lying on the riverbank, watched over by the servants. Now here's what I wrote. The first thing, Father Crow asks Fox for help. Okay, there you go. Then, Fox comes up with a plan. Easy peasy. Then the end is the crows go to the river where the jewels are. See, to me, that turned one event into one good memory. And I know it seems like it took forever for me to do, but it really didn't. I mean, when you think about it, I just wrote 3 quick little things. Crow asks for help. Fox has plan. Crows go to riverbank. Easy peasy. Because what you don't want to do, okay, and this is what a lot of you are going to do, and it's going to mess you up real bad. That's waiting till the end and going back just so your teacher doesn't tell you anything. That is actually going to be super bad for some of you. A lot of you are already going to have forgotten what you read by the time you go to take the notes. And imagine what it's going to be like to try to rethink up the notes and then go to the questions again. It's going to be a really hard process for you, and that might cause anxiety. And if you cause anxiety, you might turn your brain off. So always remember, all of these things aren't extra work. They're the work. Yeah? These notes that I'm taking, they're the bridge from the passage to you understanding. And understanding is the bridge to you passing. So we want to do as much as we can to keep that intact. So that's my second tip. Write as soon as you read. All right, friendos, time for the next tip. Tip number 3. Lucky number 3. So the tip I want to talk about next is use context. Okay, well, what does that mean?
I've heard of context clues, Mr. Rodriguez.
Okay, but you have to use them. Keyword being used. Okay, using context can mean a lot of different things. What it really means is always making sure that you are thinking about the story, the events, and details of the story when you think about what it is you're trying to make a point of, right? Lots of times context can come up and it may be really simple. Other times it may not be. Sometimes context may go against what you know in your head. So those of you kids who go real fast, context is gonna be super important to you. Like, let's say you get to a word that you already know the meaning of, right? Like the word overwhelmed. You see it in a passage, you see it underlined, you already know they're gonna ask you, so you rush over to the questions and you're like, I know what overwhelmed means. That's bad. Overwhelmed is a bad thing, because right now I'm overwhelmed with fear. Okay, I get that, and that's very good. That is one of the ways you can use overwhelmed. But if you actually use context and you go in the story, it's actually talking about how the mom was overwhelmed with joy. So it actually wasn't a bad thing. Being overwhelmed in that case, if you use context, actually meant overwhelmed with joy. It just means she had a lot of joy, so much she couldn't take it. So it wasn't bad. But a lot of you kids go really fast and who already know lots of words, or maybe you don't, you're going to see something like that. And if you don't use context, you're going to find yourself in trouble. And this will happen with other times when they give you the definition of words. They'll give you a definition entry and they'll say there's these 3 definitions. And you'll just pick the one that seems familiar to you. Always remember to use context. How is it going to work in the story? Is it going to flow with the story, and will the event still make sense? That's what it really means to use context. So always make sure that you're using context, whether you're taking notes, whether you're defining a word, whether you're asking a question, or whether you're thinking about what you're going to write. You have to use context. Tip number 3, use context. All right, my friends, the tip I'm going to finish with today, tip number 4, is going to be you have to think you can, not just want it. Your brain, and if you're one of my students, you'll know I say this all the time. Your brain does what you think, not what you want. What does that mean? It means that your brain works on perceptions, whether it's perceiving shadows, shapes, and light to let you know, hey, there's probably a turn coming up and you need to turn. Or perceiving where there's ledges, hey, you might fall if you keep walking off there, pal. Your brain does a lot to perceive the world to make your reality, okay? And that is just how we navigate through life. If you think that you're gonna fail, you most likely will. Your brain is gonna make up a perception that's gonna meet what you think reality should be. Just like you think there's gonna be a turn, just like you think there's gonna be a cliff, or maybe you've done that thing where you pick up a milk jug because you think it's full but it's empty, but you still go, yeah! Yeah, that's because your brain made your arm do what you think is reality, not what you want. You can't just want to pass. You have to have a positive mindset, and you have to know and think that you can. If you know and think that you can, you won't run into anxiety, you won't freeze, you won't build yourself a perception where your brain thinks what's supposed to happen is you failing. Even though you want to pass with all your heart, you think that you're not going to do good. Your brain is going to anticipate that. And it's going to build a perception for you that is you failing because it thinks that's what you think is going to happen. Not what you want. It's not based on what you want. It's based on what you think. So you have to have faith in yourself. Believe in yourself. Think that you will do well, and you will do well. But don't forget, you can't just do it on your own. Use tips and the tricks that your teachers have shown you. Think about what I've said today. Write as soon as you read. Turn events and text into memories. Use those memories to write and be successful. All right, friendos, that's it for me today. I wish you all the luck in the world, even though you do not need it. All you need is up here. I love you with all my heart. You're going to do fantastic. Bye-bye.